Welcome, family and friends, to the CliqueCast. With us, we have, as always, the author, Mr. Encyclopedia Brown, Jimmy Jam. Say what's up.
What's up, what's up?
And sitting in on the CliqueCast today, we have our special guest host, the engineer, Mr. Make It Happen, TU's finest, B squared. What's up, homie?
Hey, family, how's everyone doing?
Oh, buddy. Doing cool, waiting for the pay-per-view today. I am your host, Big Ron Stud, and this is the CliqueCast. You can find us on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio, Podcast Addict, Google Podcasts. You can find us on Anchor FM. You can like and subscribe to us on YouTube channel. Find us on Facebook. Our Instagram page is CliqueCast333, and we're on Twitter. So follow us and join the clique. All right. Today we are talking everything AEW. Yay, I got through that. Only one mistake. So there. Now what? So today we're talking everything AEW. We're going to lead up to our pay-per-view today, which are all pretty much forward-looking, pretty much looking forward to today, checking out the pay-per-view. It should be a really good one. We want to start off with what's AEW doing right. I'm going to talk about what they're doing wrong. I want to do a compare and contrast to TNA. But here's the funny part. As I started listing what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, and I did a comparison for TNA, they're pretty much doing everything TNA did. Everything TNA did wrong, they're not doing it. They're completely doing the opposite. So it's going to be an interesting comparison, I think. And we're going to finish up with our predictions for the show today. So Jimmy Jam, who is actually probably I consider him the AEW expert on the show. Jimmy Jam, let's start off with, what do you think TNA is doing right, man? I'm sorry, damn, I said TNA. What do you think AEW is doing right?
Well, actually, what? TNA is doing a lot of right these days. I don't watch it, but I hear good things about it. But anyways, I'm not gonna watch TNA ever again.
I tried. It's hard.
AEW doing a lot right. I think the biggest thing they're doing right is they're keeping their fans excited about their product. Now, I've said many times before that I don't watch WWE anymore. And that's because I just fell out of love with their product. That was the first promotion I ever watched. And then on two separate occasions, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And that was mostly because I felt like a fucking idiot watching their product.
Mm-hmm.
AEW has never made me feel that way. Granted, they're not perfect, and we'll get into what they're doing wrong later. But as someone who has watched everything AEW has put out, including the very first All In show, which was like, pilot episode of AEW.
Right.
I don't feel like an idiot when I watch their product, and consistently I'm always excited to watch their product. I look forward to Wednesday nights to watch Dynamite. I look forward to pay-per-view days like today. I'm hyped for the pay-per-view today. So I think that is their biggest plus, is that they don't insult their audience intelligence. They do some things wrong, but I don't feel like an idiot when I'm watching.
I totally agree with the insulting the audience intelligence part. I think WWE appeals to the lowest common denominator, kind of like the Howard Stern show. I'm not knocking Stern. He's been around for 50 years, but they appeal to the lowest common denominator, and that's usually like on the low end of the IQ quotient there. So I'm going to hop in there and tell you what I think the number one thing, if you were to ask me, that AEW has done right, is they're top down. There's one person in charge, and that's Tony Khan. And that's what I've noticed with a lot of mistakes of the organization has made, as I've read books and followed different organizations to see what they're doing. Mainly, I'm talking about TNA and WCW, whereas it seemed like a lot of the failure came in the fact that there wasn't well-defined leadership. And in AEW, Tony Khan is the number one guy. Everything comes down to Tony Khan, what it seems like. And with that, you have somebody who is a true pro wrestling fan, not necessarily a sports entertainment guy, but he is a pro wrestling fan, true and true. And he's hired people in pro wrestling to advise him and guide him and lead him down a proper way of trying to do business. And I think that shows in the product. And the fact that as a fan myself, there's like a true fan, but even better than a true fan that's a billionaire that has his own wrestling company. It's hella cool.
We'd all be so lucky, right?
Right? Come on now. I just want to be a true friend. Can I be a true friend to Tony Khan? That'd be awesome right there. But the fact that nobody's basically had the pockets like Tony Khan that's come into pro wrestling in the last umpteen years with his own vision and with the actually true love of the sport. So it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes. B Square, what do you think AEW is doing right?
I think one of the things that they're doing right, and that's by virtue of them being a relatively newer promotion, I think we're now with year number 3, is that they are what I would call having crock pot angles. What I mean by that, they have teased angles, they've let it simmer. They've added in their meat and their potatoes and added in their layers of seasoning to get you interested in angles that have come to fruition since the beginning. Even like the one now that they've been building now for several pay-per-views with CM Punk and MJF, and how they've had the time to add those different layers to the story, as opposed to with WWE, you have 14 pay-per-views a year?
Yeah.
Or something insanely crazy like that. So you don't have a chance to develop those angles. You have a chance for someone to bump into them, and then all of a sudden you got a main event match. Right. It's like, what's going on here?
Right.
So I think that's one thing, that they're allowing these angles to slowly build. They've teased other angles, and then they've walked away from them. I'm waiting for that angle to come to fruition where, it's got to go down between Tully and Arn. Whether they come together or whether they're just going left hand to right hand, it has to come to a head. But I'm glad they didn't jump right in. They've mentioned it before, but they've just left it there. So that's the thing I like, is that they're taking time to develop the stories and develop the angles. So they those crock pot angles.
I like that.
Microwave mess that WWE is, they all empty calories.
I like that, crock pot angles. I did not know where you were going with that. So yeah, I like that a lot. That's dope. Couldn't agree more. The one thing I do remember that I liked about the brand split is when they first did it, if you remember, they did a 2-month build per every pay-per-view. And so you had like an actual build towards like a championship match. And I thought that was cool. But that's what's missing right now in WWE, like real storytelling, like real emotion. There's no build or anything. It's just kind of throw it at you, digest it real quick. So
the only thing, the problem with that is that you only ever wanted to see one of those pay-per-views, and that was the Raw pay-per-view, because they spent the most time in developing the stories on Raw.
Facts.
So it sort of left, hey, I watch Raw, I'm not watching SmackDown. And now today it's the opposite. I watch SmackDown before I watch Raw.
Definitely. SmackDown's the show right now. I mean, Roman Reigns is killing it right now. Do you hear that? That's my dog whining at me so I can let her out. Go ahead, Jimmy, if you had any more to give on the topic.
I just want to piggyback off what you were saying about Tony Khan being the main voice in AEW. I think when AEW first started, you can tell that it was a little disjointed. You can tell there was levels like the Bucks and Kenny and Cody like doing their own thing, too many cooks in the proverbial kitchen, and it was disjointed at times. But when they came back in 2020 after the Christmas holiday, you can tell that Tony Khan really took over, and it was more of a focused show. And I think since then, they've just been on this amazing hot streak. Granted, they have some meh episodes of a Dynamite or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think since January of 2020, they've just been on fire for the most part. And I think that's mostly because Tony Khan really has become that one singular voice. And as far as what B was saying, I completely agree about the whole crockpot thing. I think that is a perfect analogy because they set up so many like little seeds. They plant so many little seeds, and you don't know when it's going to happen, but you know it's going to come eventually. You know, whether it's Wardlow turning on MJF,
Right,
or whether it's, you know, Hangman becoming champion. You know, like these seeds have been planted so long ago. You don't know when it's going to happen, but you are excited to see it finally happen. And AEW is really good about long-term storytelling.
no doubt. Especially, you know, and I gotta say, I thought they jumped the gun with the CM Punk MJF storyline. I thought we had a little bit more time to get to those two.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the story is played out is like, oh my God, it's been perfect. It's been damn near perfect. Everything from MJF getting the 2 wins to the promo he did, which I thought was amazing, to just, and then the comeback with him kicking him in the balls, which we all knew was coming, right? But everything was laid out perfectly, and there's been layers and layers to this program so far, and so it's been extremely well done there. And what I wanted to jump into with that real quick is say that also something that I think they're doing right is they're letting the wrestlers be themselves. They're letting these guys who worked on their characters for who knows how long come out there and be those characters. We all know that MJF and WWF would be like, it'd be ridiculous. He'd be a gelding. He'd be like not good at all. He would have had his balls cut off quick, and it wouldn't have been MJF. It would have been a lackluster Ken Kennedy. So it's like
They might have like cut off his hair and made him put a hearing in and change him to fucking Spartacus.
Named him Spartacus.
Shout out to anyone who gets that reference.
Yes, they would name him Spartacus JF. It'd have been ridiculous, yo. So it's like, again, he's, like you said, Tony Khan stepped in there and he's took the reins over, and he's also known where to let the wrestlers kind of guide their own programs in a sense. So I thought it's been great in that, as far as the way the company's been run, which is a big part to success in pro wrestling, as we have learned. Now let's flip over to the other side. I'm going to let B Square jump on this one. What do you think AEW has done wrong at this point? Because they have not been perfect. Even Jimmy will admit that.
Well, I think one thing that they've done wrong at this point, and it may just be remedied by the recent acquisition of ROH, that they're missing that third show. That third show that could be syndicated, like now they could use that Sinclair, hopefully that Sinclair broadcasting time slot is still available, to be able to have that match on TV as opposed to having to go to YouTube to watch Elevation or Dark. So that was one thing. I think there's the 2-hour show for Dynamite and their 1-hour show for Rampage. And I think Rampage could be an hour and a half, but it gives you enough without having oversaturation. But they have now such a much larger roster than what they started off with. There are so many of these younger guys that I'm just now learning about and seeing that they have true skill, and they really need to get that next level rub to being on network TV where people can actually see them and start to buy into their character, their persona, and their ring work.
No doubt.
That's one thing. I think they're missing a third show that's syndicated, and it could be like back in the day. WCW had that Saturday morning show or that Saturday afternoon show, or you had a Sunday afternoon show, but something that isn't necessarily a part of their normal, similar to the WWF when they had like superstars and main events, something like that, but something on TV to where maybe the casual wrestling fan could tune in and be able to see the wrestling show and just have eyes on it and may be interested enough to tune into the major shows, the Dynamite and the Rampage.
Facts.
So that's what I think. I think they're missing the third syndicated show right now just to be able to showcase all the talent that they do have.
I see what you mean by that, and I agree and I don't agree at the same time, because you never want to oversaturate the market with your product. And I think WWE does it. I think it's too much WWE on TV. It's 3 hours of Raw plus 2 hours SmackDown. Then you have a pay-per-view every month. I think that's too much. AEW, yes, they do need. I don't think they need more TV. I think they need to do better with their YouTube shows. I think that's what I would want to see, because Dark and Dark Elevation are completely missable shows. Like, there's nothing special about them. If you want to check out their young up and coming talent, you might see that. But usually it's just enhancement matches for their already established talent. I think they should showcase more of Lee Moriarty, of Kiera Hogan, of Dante Martin, like these young upcoming guys that they have. They should showcase them more on their YouTube shows. But I don't think they should have an extra half hour or an extra hour of a rampage. I think 1 hour is perfect for that, because right now we're all saying that we want more of AEW. But what you don't want to say is that, oh, there's too much AEW. I might much rather be on here saying I want more, as opposed to I'm burned out with this product.
Yeah, so, I hear you on that. But 2 points to that. Number one, with WWF with Raw, they have 3 hours of programming. They sure in the hell don't have 3 hours of wrestling. they're paying these writers to write.
That's true.
Facts. That's true. But
time.
That's a very good point. It's 3 hours of I can't. I'm to the point where I can't watch NXT anymore. It's so bad. It's now NXT Glow. It's ridiculous. But I don't want to get onto that because that's going to piss me off. They ruined a great show. And my issue, or things that I think they've done wrong, kind of bleeds into what both of you guys are saying, was that I'm worried about them getting too much of a bloated roster. Like, they're hiring a lot of people who we've not seen. Three people, I guess, come to mind would be a Private Party, which I thought were going to be way bigger at this point, and I never see them on TV. And then there's Jay Lethal, who just came in the company recently, who he's been killing it for like 3 years straight in ROH. And maybe he'll get a bigger push now with the whole acquisition of ROH, but he came in like once or twice and completely disappeared. And I guess he's relegated to Elevation and Dark, which is where his career right now is pretty dark if he's going to stay there on YouTube. But yeah, I'm worried about them hiring too many people and getting to the point where nobody's being used. And from what I understand, is they can go and work other places, and so maybe it's just hiring them away from WWE, but they're not really being used properly. So, and again, if they can go work other places like Impact or New Japan or PWG, MLW, things like that, that's great. But the point of seeing them on that national radar, on our national scene, was why we wanted them hired in AEW. I know there's other people I'm missing. Jimmy, you're good with their roster. Who are some of the other cats who we're not seeing any time that we should see?
So once again, I kind of agree and kind of disagree about the bloated roster, because I don't think it's too bloated yet. I think Tony Khan could do a better job of using his roster. So, like, for example, somebody like Brian Cage, who hasn't been on TV since October.
He's doing indie shows out here. He was like at Alameda Gym a couple of weeks ago.
It's like, I have no idea why he's been off TV for so long. But maybe I heard he was injured for a little bit, but he's healed up now. He was wrestling Will Ospreay a couple of months ago, so he's fine now. I don't know why he hasn't been on TV. But anyway, to your point about who needs more TV time, I completely agree with Jay Lethal. And what I mean when I say Tony Khan should do a better job using his roster It's like, it's not bloated yet, but some people just should not be on TV. It's like, I like Bear Country. I think they're really good up and coming tag team, but they should not be taking a TV time on Dynamite. You know, you can use that for Dark and Dark Elevation. Like, that's what those shows are for your up and coming talent. Jay Lethal is an established guy. Put him on TV. I don't want to see Brock Anderson on TV. Like, he's developmental.
Yeah,
developmental shows. That spot should be for Jay Lethal. So yes, they have a huge roster, but I don't think we'd be talking about it's bloated if it was used better. It's not. I'm not saying it's terrible or bad. It could just be better. And that, like, one thing that stuck out to me was Cody's last feud with Sammy Guevara. Mm-hmm. And I just, for the life of me, I didn't understand why Jay Lethal was not in that spot. I thought it was a simple story to tell that you just brought him into the company. Sammy he was injured. You could have had Jay Lethal beat Sammy in this shocking moment. And Sammy had a simple excuse. I was injured. This is a rematch. You could have Sammy take it back in the rematch, or have some sort of fuck finish, and then do the ladder match. Yeah, I thought it was a simple story they could have told, but they gave it to Cody. I don't know why Cody needed that spot. It was a great match, but it's like you have Jay Lethal doing nothing.
I think that was contract negotiations.
Go ahead, Ron.
That was contract negotiations. That's why he got that. It didn't work out. You see, he lost it like a week later.
But you also have, like, Brandy Rhodes doing this weird shit with Dan Lambert. It's like, get that shit off my TV. That's what I mean when I say they could use their roster better. It's like, if you had Jay Lethal doing something, or if you had, I think Lance Archer was injured at the time, or if you had Brian Cage, who wasn't injured at that time, if you had him doing something, it's like, put them in those spots. We don't need Dan Lambert feuding with Brandy Rhodes. Like, who is that for?
Yeah, true.
Who is that for? It's definitely not for me. I'm the hardcore AEW fan. It ain't for me. So who is that for?
Well, I also want to mention I totally agree with that. I do. I just like Dan Lambert, so whenever he's on TV, I'm happy. But the thing with Brandy Rhodes was ridiculous. That was so silly. How you made Dan Lambert a face in that is beyond me. But they pulled off one I didn't think was going to be possible. But the one thing I also want to mention is that I feel they've been terrible with using their big man. I know, Jimmy, you've alluded to it with Lance Archer and Brian Cage. But I felt like them coming in, losing to Cody, killed their push way early on. And it's almost like AEW is like the little man's territory is getting even all the big men. But we'll see what happens with Hobbs and things like that. And my man Keith Lee, hopefully he doesn't fall for that.
Where has Miro been?
Great question.
Loving Miro's character, and even when he was blaming God for having a weak neck.
Okay, but Miro, he was injured. I think he's healed up now, but he was injured for like a couple months.
Okay.
Yeah, but at least the vignettes coming. The vignettes were always gold with him.
Yeah. He should actually still have those out.
Yeah.
He was
and that's
my favorite wrestler.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the things that they're doing right is that they don't have, some, All in the Family or some, Days of Our Lives Hollywood screenwriter writing a promo that, say, like Braun Strowman had to read off the cue cards, with WWF. Allow them to sink or swim on their own with their promo and develop it all the way through, because if you have other people writing for you, you'll never truly reach your potential of what you really could be.
Well, speaking of development, I want to go back to B. You talked about ROH and how they should use them, or some ideas. So what were you thinking? I think this is going to be critical in how they move forward, and what happens with ROH and how do they use them? What are your thoughts?
Oh, that was a throw to me?
Yeah, it was. Damn, it's supposed to be smoother than that.
Oh, my bad. I think with ROH, what they should do is keep ROH as a separate entity up to itself with its own champions, own titles. They have enough rosters where they can, pretty much divide it up and, allow each of them to run autonomously, similar to what they were trying to do with Raw, but they failed ultimately because all they were doing was taking a WWE roster and splitting it.
Right.
You already have an established company, ROH, that is, has its own history of champions, their own Hall of Fame, goes back to even with one of the first members they're going to induct is going to be Bryan Danielson into their Hall of Fame. Allow that to occur, maybe find them in ROH, maybe this could be the third show. ROH can be elevated now from syndication into a TNT TNT is getting all sports now, into a TBS time slot.
That's true.
Somewhere, but then have them come together to have a big, massive show. What we've all been salivating for is just to have that one huge super card, whether it's WWE, New Japan, AEW, ROH, MLW, even throw some of their wrestlers into that,
totally.
where they can come together, have a big, massive pay-per-view match, and eventually work to it. Maybe they wind up doing a champion versus champion that actually means something.
Right, a huge super show, like a stadium super show. So,
exactly.
Jimmy Jam, do you think that ROH should be its own entity, or does it become a developmental?
I really don't know. I've been thinking about this when you said you wanted to bring this up as a topic. I really don't know, because it's like, I love Ring of Honor. That's, that Ring of Honor kept me as a wrestling fan. Like when I was falling out of love with wrestling, with WWE specifically, Ring of Honor kept me around. So I do want to see it as its own promotion. I just don't understand what would be the point for Tony Khan to do that, because AEW is such a stronger brand name. It's like, it's like Ring of Honor, it's really cold at this current moment. You could heat it up, granted, but it's like, if you're going to sell tickets to a whole separate show, you could just name it AEW something else. Why would you name it Ring of Honor? It's like, I just don't understand. Why would you keep that Ring of Honor brand? Because the AEW name could just sell better. But I would love to see it continue as its own separate entity, because like we said, the roster is getting big. I don't think it's too big yet, but when you hear that Cesaro is gone from WWE,
Bray Wyatt is still out there.
Bray Wyatt is like, okay, AEW can't take everyone, and I'd much rather see Cesaro in New Japan doing the G1 than AEW. But it's like, AEW, they can't take everyone. But if you have Ring of Honor, that's, this whole other promotion, then, Tony Khan could sign a shitload more people, and they could just tear it up over there. And, you could have these young guys in AEW who's not getting enough TV time, Private Party, Lee Moriarty, put them on Ring of Honor. But I just don't understand why you would call it Ring of Honor when you have the AEW brand, and you could just brand it as like AEW Honor Club or whatever. I don't know, some shit. But that's just what I think.
I mean, Ring of Honor still has name value within the wrestling community, nowhere else. But it has that cachet of, really, Ring of Honor created the start of today. Basically, everybody who's pretty good today went through Ring of Honor at some point. Samoa Joe's, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk,
definitely.
Everybody at some point came.
Years ago, they had a Ring of Honor show here in Dallas, and I went to it, and it looked like they held it in like a nightclub, like a Western bar turned nightclub.
Oh, wow,
but I was in like the third row, and it was an excellent night of wrestling. The crowd was white hot. And even it was so hilarious. I can't think of the ROH. What's the ROH? The fat referee's name? What is his name?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
Yeah,
I know you're talking about.
I can't think of his name either, but you're talking about fans absolutely giving that referee the business the entire night. But it was, Jay Lethal. You had the Young Bucks. You had, oh goodness, names are getting away from me now. But it was just a great night of wrestling that I would definitely go back again if they were in the area. But with AEW, even with them having the ROH element, that's like a fusion of having your indie talent, fused in with the territory days and mixing in the New Japan to where you're able to go between the different organizations so that you're able to keep people fresh and they're just not standing around in the same place doing nothing. You can have that monster heel return. He's back from being overseas like they did with the Warhawk, which, automatically he comes in and he gets right back in the mix, but then he can go away.
Mm-hmm.
He can go terrorize ROH. He can go over to AEW and, terrorize them over there, but you continue to keep a fresh faces, but you also give them a chance to go away.
Yeah.
Because one thing I remember when the Big Show chokeslammed John Cena through the big light, and the next day John Cena is back,
smiling, right?
Sell the stinking injury. He should have been out for at least a month.
At least.
Now they're able to sell injuries, legit injuries and vacation injuries. So they're able to sell it in order to come back to have that feud a couple months down the line to where, okay, you tried to get me, but you tried to take me out, but you couldn't get the job done.
Great.
The classic wrestling line.
Yeah, they didn't get it done.
And keep it white hot, keep it fresh, keep the matches coming, and allow those storylines. That way, you're not just like a Dolph Ziggler, great wrestler, but good lord,
yeah.
What else can he do?
Win the NXT title, apparently. We won't talk about NXT. We're not going to talk about NXT.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, excellent. All great points, man. So, let's wrap up this piece with the question that actually had me thinking about this topic in the first place. Is AEW going to be the company that finally takes over as the top wrestling company in the U.S.?
Before you get, I just want to say one last thing.
Go ahead.
No, because B, I forgot to mention this earlier, and B was talking about people can make them go away and, do all things in the territories. That's why I don't think AEW's roster is too bloated yet, because when people go away, whether it's injury or they want to work a few indie dates for like a month or whatever, their shows keep rolling. Kenny Omega was out, Miro was out, Archer was out, Hangman was missing for a while, Moxley was gone. And these are top guys, but the show just kept rolling. The show was still good, still interesting. So that's why I don't think AEW's roster is too bloated just yet, because you have a lot of top talent. When people go down, the show keeps rolling. That's all I want to say.
Okay, back to my topic question. So I'm giving this to you, actually, Jam. I kind of know where you're going with this. Is AEW going to be the company that takes over as a top wrestling company in the U.S.?
I mean, my first mind is no, because WWE, they make huge amounts of money. They have these gaudy TV contracts, and they deal with that fucking blood money in Saudi Arabia. So it's no, they're not going to overtake WWE. However, is it impossible? No, nothing's impossible. It's not WWE wants to say that they're Disney, that they're the NFL. It's you're definitely not, because if you're a football player, you want to be in the NFL. No one is saying, I want to play in the fucking XFL or the USFL that's coming out next year, I think.
Right.
No one is saying that. If you're a football player, if you're any sort of athlete, you want to be NBA, NFL, MLB. Those are the top spots. If you're a wrestler, you can make a living and a name for yourself in a multitude of companies, whether it's WWE, AEW, or New Japan. You can even do it in fucking TNA. It's like, you don't need WWE to be a wrestling star. So, do I think they'll overtake WWE? No, but it's also not impossible, because WWE, if they keep running off fans the way they are, they could crumble. That's what I mean when I say it's not impossible, because those ratings, man, they keep going further and further down.
Yeah.
And when they do shit like mass releases and this Saudi Arabia shit, it's like people get turned off from that.
B, what you think, man? Is WWE going down?
Short term, and when I say short term, I'm talking, 15 years. Now 15 years, no. Now, long term, 20 years and beyond, they have a chance. And the reason why I say that is you look at, the National Wrestling Alliance had over 100 years of history, was the top promotion before, sort of changed and morphed, and WWF turned WWF turned WWE eventually came over and, and surpassed them and took the top spot. Empires don't last forever.
Right.
And part of what, I agree with Jimmy Jam was saying with the blood money and with just them doing crazy stuff, just silly stuff with WWE. Who knows what's going to happen with Vince in the next 5 years or so? And, is he really going to turn over the reins, or is he going to sell outright to Disney? And if they wind up selling the company to a Disney, what in the world's going to become of it? Are they going to be even more PG?
So yeah, it'll be GG.
Because of its name in of itself, WWE, so synonymous not only with wrestlers, but with household names that you know, from Muhammad Ali to, what was his name? To Mike Tyson. They've had cultural icons. They got Bad Bunny. I didn't know who he was, showing how old I am.
Facts.
He was actually believable in the,
it can work.
In the ring. So they're continuing to stay relevant with bringing in these people, these stars in their own right, in entertainment, music, and in sports. They continue to intermix and weave them in. The problem I'm seeing is that WWE, with how they're headed, they're not creating any new stars.
That's the key.
How many times is Goldberg going to come back?
Oh my God!
How many times is Brock Lesnar going to go away and come back and make $3 million for 6 months or however long he wrestles? It could wind up being a burnout of WCW, to where the guys on the top stayed on the top and they didn't let anyone else go, and anyone else rise to the top, and they're being pushed out. And that's one thing I like what AEW is doing, is that the older, more seasoned people are actually giving the rub to the next generation.
Yeah.
And that's what I really appreciate, that they're doing, not just all of a sudden just, totally squashing the young talent.
AEW is definitely using their veterans the right way. They're using them to elevate talent and not take over like what happened in TNA. And for that, and for everything that both of you guys say, I think AEW is going to take over. It's not going to happen in the next 5 years. No way. WWE's namesake is value, like basically stock exchange value. Their name has literal value to it. So they're not coming that far. But what I always notice, what we all know, is that the fans of today make the wrestlers of tomorrow. And the fans of today are seeing how WWE is treating the wrestlers of today. And they're going to eventually move over and move away from WWE as a place they want to work. It's going to be AEW, the place where the younger people want to work. And that's what's going to happen to the business, I think. If they keep going the right way, they don't end up like the Jaguars. What you call it? AEW can be really strong brand. It can be an incredible brand that eventually takes over again. Not in the next 5 years, maybe not even the next 10 years, but I don't know. maybe in the next 9 or 8, 12 years, who knows? I'm looking at AEW being the top brand in the U.S. And with that, let's jump right into our predictions for the pay-per-view today. Jimmy Jam, set us up. First of all, what's the pay-per-view's name? I forget shit like that. I really do.
AEW Revolution.
Revolution. That's what it is. So the Revolution is going to be a long show.
Purple montage or purple light highlights in the back to, shout out to Prince. But oh well.
The Revolution, I agree. Actually.
Let's start with the pre-show.
We have a stacked card tonight. 12 matches, three on the pre-show, which I'm excited for all of them, actually.